Wolf Pack. It is your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com, where we breed and feed fantasy wolves here for one last rodeo, one last go around, the fantasy championship. Nothing else matters, folks. This is it. All those hard-fought wins, the streams that got you there, all the brutal losses, nothing matters anymore at this point. It's all about winning and bringing home the title, a moment of pride that will rival your wedding day, the day you hold your child. All those big moments pale in comparison to getting that fantasy football win. I, of course, am the Wolf of Roto Street, at Roto Street Wolf. You can always connect with me and hit me up there. But those of you tuned into the Fantasy Fullback Dive, where we pave your path to 2019 titles, we always invite you to come to these live broadcasts so you can get your questions in and answered. We already got some of our top fans like Leo. We got Denny Jennings. And get your questions in like these guys now, so we can get those lineups perfect. I totally agree. Drake is an absolute monster. Hopefully you were on the right side of that monster rather than getting devoured by 4 fucking touchdowns. The dude had 10 career touchdowns leading into today, or Sunday rather, and then ends up putting up 4, nearly half his career total. Insanity. But hopefully that was helpful to you and not something that is giving you nightmares still today. I'm going to start, as we always do in this rankings rundown, with your quarterbacks to get you ready and live with the matchup calendar. I will pull that up now so you can see how everybody ranks in their matchups. So first, we got to switch to quarterbacks. And of course, at the top of the list, you see some matchup-proof names. So Week 16, Cleveland. For Lamar Jackson, it doesn't matter who he's facing, but they also give the 12th most points to the position. So the guy's going to blow up yet again, as he always does. Fresh off 37 points, 5 TDs. Ruined my season. 3 times throwing 5 touchdowns against me. 15 touchdowns in 1 year, Lamar Jackson. Thanks so much. It was a real pleasure not owning you anywhere and having you hit me not once, not twice, but 3 times with a 5-touchdown game in my most important league. Single-handedly ruined my hopes and dreams. Thanks, Lamar. But you got Pat Mahomes in a tough matchup against Chicago, 28th most points to signal callers, and he's also been a little more conservative lately. Had a nice snow game, so we'll see where he ends up sliding in. You got Russell Wilson against Arizona, the most points to quarterbacks, despite this guy struggling. Again, 6 of his last 8 were bottom 16 or lower at quarterback. He still gets such a juicy matchup, and hopefully the Cardinals can keep that competitive and make it a shootout-style game. Watson, the 7th most points to quarterbacks here with Tampa Bay. That feels low, honestly, because they're going to have the most points to wide receivers. Tough against running backs, but overall, that will be a funnel game. You have the Saturday 1 o'clock matchup. Should be fun. Don't love Rodgers ever, certainly not against Minnesota, a tough defense, despite a weak secondary. Winston gets Houston, 3rd most points to signal callers. Going to be down some top weapons, as we'll preview in a moment. Breeze right in the middle of the pack, fresh off 7 TDs in his last 2 games. Ridiculous. Maybe it's even more than that, actually. Had 4 last night, 5 the week before, so 9 TDs over his last 2. Insanity. Kyler Murray, Seattle. Again, we talk about maybe a back-and-forth shootout-style game. Prescott, Philly. In terms of other guys down here, somehow Jacksonville, really bad. 10th most points to quarterback, so Matty Ice in a good spot. You got Josh Allen, Brady, Garoppolo, Mayfield, and Goff all in tough spots as potential starters in your lineups. Tannehill right in the middle of the road, 14th most points, and he's been really lighting it up. Again, 2nd most points among QBs besides only Lamar Jackson. And then some potential streamers down here in good spots. Ryan Fitzpatrick, yet another beautiful spot, 9th most points to quarterbacks. You got Philly Ribs, maybe his last game as a Charger at home ever. We'll find out. Yeah, that emotional setup for Eli. Maybe you get the same type of boom for Philly Rivers here. And so one other streamer I just want to make sure to shout out. Sorry, I lost my place there. Minshew against Atlanta, a solid, well-available guy. And then I love Drew Lock this week. 5th most points to quarterbacks against Detroit, we just saw them get bombed by Jameis Winston for 450 and 4 routinely. And he's only 5,600 on draft because I took a little sneak peek today. And that's about it that I'll look at. Dwayne Haskins has probably his best day as a pro, gets the Giants, but you hopefully can find someone a little bit safer like Minshew, like Drew Lock even, I would have above him. So let's get to the rankings here. Let me pull down that matchup calendar. You can see that beautiful face again. Hello. And let's get on to the actual ranking fest after those numbers are in your mind. Lamar Jackson, tier by himself. Not even going to bother putting anyone else out near him. Blows up every single week. Going to do it again in a good spot against Cleveland. Watson, I do like it. Number 2. Wilson could have taken over, but again, these stretch runs have not been great. So I'm going to bump him down. Now, I'm going to actually bump Winston down a little bit. Again, he's off a NFL record. No other quarterback has ever thrown 450 in back-to-back games like he just did. 4 touchdowns in both contests. So benching him is clearly risky, especially in a good matchup against Houston. But you got to be a little nervous to the fact that he does not have Godwin, that he does not have Mike Evans now. Sure, Brashad Perriman has shown well, looked good over the course of the last game. I mean, 3 touchdowns, no joke, and he finished strong last season too, but can he handle number 1 coverage? I don't know if that matters with Houston. Whoever their number 1 corner is was an outcast from Oakland who sucks too. So maybe, yeah, maybe, but still, just being down your top 2 weapons, I think, he's a little too high in rankings. Like, I'd rather have Breeze, who's just as hot right now, but still has all his guys intact. Give me Dak against Philly. And Mahomes, tough spot against Minnesota. I would have Winston above him. And I'm going to cut this tier off with Ryan Tannehill. And again, what could and should be a shootout with New Orleans. That secondary so dinged up. A little pissed that Watson didn't take advantage of it like I thought he might this last week. You got Matt Ryan, who's had plenty of quality games this year. Gets a top 10 matchup here against Jacksonville, a team that's just completely quit. Although they did knock off Oakland last week in their home, ending their hopes and dreams to their last home game, which is kind of classic there. I don't ever like Rodgers. I continue to rank him lower. He continues to somehow be ranked top 12 every single week by the experts, and I just don't ever understand why. I would not be trusting him this week. I do like Kyler at 10 there, again, with Wilson in such a good spot. I'm going to bump up Phillip Rivers. I like Cousins there at 12. This team does throw the ball a ton. He's got his full weapons cabinet back, and Green Bay secondary has been uninspiring most of the year, and especially as of late. So, big fan of Cousins. Philly Rivers, again, an option that I've seen cut in a lot of leagues that I would definitely be considering streaming this week. Garoppolo showed kind of, obviously we had that huge game against the Saints, but the Rams, can they keep pace with the 49ers? I just don't know if they're going to breed that script. And then you got Atlanta somehow held this guy to points. They've really been playing some fired up defense, not quite the matchup they used to be. So that's why Minshew, I mentioned him as a streamer, not nearly as appealing as he could be most weeks. I do think San Fran's, like I said, my Hail Mary of the week, Drew Lock. I'm bumping up to QB 17, 5 spots higher than his ECR. And going down the list here, seems all pretty appropriate. I'd probably rather have Goff than Allen or Trubisky, even though Goff is kind of a shithead and shit bum, and he's on the road at San Fran. Without Richard Sherman, that matchup becomes a whole lot more appealing. Other than that, as you go down the list, this is like the upside QB2s, so let me just kind of cut that off here. You can't trust Andy Dalton. I get the Miami matchup. It's very appealing, but he is just so bad. I guess I'd play him over Brady and Eli. Anything else down here, though, that's worth pointing out? Haskins, again, that good matchup. Like, if I'm desperate, I guess I would look to him in 2 QB leagues. And that about wraps up my QBs. Quick plug, guys, if you're tuned in, listening, get those questions in. It looks like we got about 20 comments so far, so I'm going to make sure to get to all those now that we finished up the QBs, and then keep them coming in as the show goes. If you're willing to share us out to any audiences out there, it's a huge help, helps us grow. The views spike when you guys do that. Especially if you're in any fantasy football groups, it means the world to us if you're willing to get us out there for more people. And of course, I'm seeing them already start to come in. Likes are always appreciated. Give it to my whore ass. I'll beg for it. Want those likes, though, because, again, it helps the discoverability, especially after the live show. So any likes, shares, and your comments are always so much appreciated. For the last time ever, guys, the Week 16 championship. Let's pull up your running backs, but I'm going to get to your questions in the meantime. Higbee saved your day, Denny. Pumped to hear it. I know we recommended him, so I'm glad that worked out. 3 straight 100-yard games, 3 straight times leading the team in targets. What an absolute monster since Everett's been knocked out. You got Montgomery, Breida, and Drake. Says Leo. You got to have Drake in there at this point, obviously. We'll get to running backs right now. Thomas, Jones, and Parker. So solid wide receivers. Prescott, Ertz. Birds, D, which crap defense there. But you got that late score, you lucky fucking bastard, Leo. What's up, Jose? D. Parker or A.J. Brown, full PPR. Ooh, at this point, how do you sit A.J. Brown? The hottest receiver in fantasy football right now, the most points scored over these last 4 weeks, and yet another juicy spot against the Saints. Parker does get Cincinnati, but they've been shockingly actually really good against wide receivers and pass games in general. We saw them lock down Tom Brady and Edelman, who's obviously banged up, but still, Jose Vega, I got to go A.J. Brown there. She's been so hot. We'll get to wide receivers in a few, but that's where I'm leaving. Carson Wentz or Philip Rivers. I got to go Rivers there, Giuseppe. I wonder if there's anything else out there, but yeah, I got to go Philly Rivs there. Tannehill or Brady. I got to go Tannehill, especially with that matchup against Buffalo. Tannehill has been so rock solid. So not only safer, higher ceiling, higher floor, everything about the matchup plays into Tannehill's favor there. Last week for the Wolf to give us bad rankings. Fucking asshole, Matt Duck. Thanks for the follow-up there. But yes, my last time to ruin all your lineups. Looks to me like we got at least a handful of people in their finals if you're still here asking questions. So pumped to hear that. I know Giuseppe Howland and Jose Vega, you all wrote in that you made it. Do you trust Tannehill with Saints getting Jenkins? I still do, Daniel. It depends on who your other options are. That does make that secondary a little more intimidating, and they already have been playing better ball, as we saw against the Colts this week, although they did give up all those yards the week before against Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, ultimately, I do trust him. Denny Jennings, hopefully DK will eat thanks to Pothead Gordon. I mean, he was already eating, so yeah, even, Pothead going to go eat some more now. Hi. Yeah, DK will eat even further, Denny, and he gets that pathetic Arizona defense. I will absolutely love DK this week. Leo, I'm going to answer these two, and then I'm going to get back to the rankings to get to your running backs. I'll pull up the calendar in a second. But again, Drake, Montgomery, Breida, Murray, Thomas, Jones, D. Parker, tight ends, Ertz, and Eagles D. I like your lineup for sure. What's your thoughts on the coming up week matchup? Thanks, buddy. I'll go through those players as we sift through the rankings so you can see where I rank them. I don't know if you have any sit starts there. The guy I really definitely wouldn't trust is Breida, with Mostert really taking over that backfield there. And Cincy D versus Miami, they've been playing good ball, Cincy D. It's always risky trusting that group. 34 points last week just because the offense is so bad. They end up wearing down as a defensive unit. So I don't know if I love that play there. We'll give you some defensive streamers potentially. And I got to probably go Denny Jennings, Denver there. I love the matchup against Blow, who just fucking sucks. David Blow. Alrighty, let's get back to your running backs, folks. I'm going to pull up the calendar here. Boop. And let me get back to the calendar to get to running backs. And we can kind of rifle through some of these matchups here. So Indy, very good against the running back. Do you really matter, though? Does it really, you care? Darius Leonard, yes, he's a great enforcer. But McCaffrey is going to be McCaffrey always, so you love him. Another elite option in Henry, though. Tough matchups in general for your elite options. Henry, you got Zeke. Oops, sorry about that. Zeke facing off against Philly. Shockingly, Atlanta, a tough matchup as well for Fournette. They've really tightened up as a run D this last year. Kamara, is he even elite anymore? But he does get a nice quality matchup. But yeah, this is tough. I mean, look at your top 7 running backs. 6 of 7 are in the red, and Kamara right in the middle of the pack. You got to wait till Dalvin Cook here to get Green Bay 11th. They've also been giving up the 5th most points entering the week. 2 running backs. You got a great spot for Carson 9th. Best matchup, Washington for Barkley. So we're going to have some of these like fringe, elite RB1s, maybe above a lot of these guys that would have been elite options. And Gordon in a great spot this week. 5,600 on DraftKings too. I have no idea why. Blows my mind. But you got Gurley in a tough spot against San Fran, though they're a little dinged up. Bell, always in a tough spot in that awful offense, and now gets that brutal D-line. Mixon, though, I mean, he'll be above most of these guys on this list. Miami giving up the most points to running backs on the year. He's been steamrolling. Had his second highest career yardage total against a very tough Patriots defense this last week. So I'm going to love Mixon. Lindsey just has had cake after cake matchup and failed to get it done, so he's going to drop. You got to have Jacobs high on your list, performed well, got tons of work, so he's going to clearly still be the focal point. Marlon Mack will be a top 10 play this week against Carolina, the most points to running backs. I said Mixon had the best matchup. He's second best, actually. And then Oakland, again, for Eckler, such a PPR beast. And as you move down the list, you got a tough matchup for Singletary, but look at the last three, and he's still been a beast, over 70% of the snaps and over double digits, I think over 15, actually, fantasy points in all those weeks. And then, some shitheads like Montgomery and Freeman do enter some juicy spots here, but tougher to trust guys like that just suck even when they're in good spots. And now you're getting down further and further in the list. Hyde's been lighting it up, but gets Tampa Bay tough. Kareem Hunt, not a great spot for him. Chubb did light up Baltimore earlier in the year. You got a great matchup for Ronald Jones. Maybe I'll get some questions about him because you do have a banged-up receiver core. Maybe they rely on the running backs a little bit more. But all in all, now you're getting into the unstartable territory here. So let's get away from that calendar. Let's tell you how all these rankings are going to sift out live here. McCaffrey always a tier by himself. We're going to keep it that way. Carson, I do think, especially in non-PPR formats, has earned that top 3 status. And I would put, though, Saquon, fourth most points, a better matchup, had more DraftKings points last week than Chris Carson. And I think that continues this week against Washington. He seemed to finally really be fully healthy over the mental blocks there. Dare I put Mixon at number 4 above Zeke and Henry with these tough matchups? I think I do. I'm not going to have Fournette, tough spot against Atlanta. And he's just been sucking, so let's bump him down. Definitely going to have Kamara above him. I do like Ingram. Chubb did have 3 touchdowns against Baltimore the last week, so still high on him. And then you're looking at Jones in a tough spot, Gordon in a great spot, so I think I bump him above some of these guys. I'll cut that off here. With Gurley, yeah, he fits in. 2 touchdowns, San Fran a little dinged up, tough matchup, and that D offense just could get swallowed, which is never a great thing for Gurley, but still, I feel okay about him. Like I said, I'm going to bump Mack into my top 11, even above Aaron Jones. The matchups always have facilitated either blowups for Jones or just nothing, and he had nothing against Minnesota last time. A little worried about him this week, folks. I do want to get Eckler, actually, involved here. I know it's half PPR, so he's not quite as appealing, but Oakland's so generous to all running backs. I'm gonna cut this one off with my top 10 again. Ingram, Melvin Gordon sneaking in there. Ingram in a great spot as well. But I would put Gordon. Such a dud last week, but if you're still alive, you gotta feel great about his prospects this week. Then, again, down on Leonard Fournette, just sucking in that defense, really picking up the pace. Connor against the Jets. Where does Kenyon Drake slide in? 4 touchdown beastly game. Can't have much lower than this. I am going to bump up Jacobs. A little too low on him here, actually. I got to put Aaron Jones in this tier. He's just earned it. Tough matchup against Chicago last week with Hicks returning, and he's still balled out. Gonna bump Mostert up above Lindsey. I just don't love Lindsey. A great spot, 5th most points to backs, but still, I can't trust him. You know who I am gonna bump up because I think he is playing this week? That's Dalvin Cook. I know the shoulder injury looked gruesome. Phew. That one was a long time coming there. Recovery tough from that sneeze. But I like putting Sanders in here too. He earned that featured back role. Tough match against Dallas. But Mostert, the clear featured back still. The other guys worked in a little more, a little more Coleman than we're used to. I'm going to bump down Boone, though. As you saw, I bumped up Dalvin Cook. The early reports are that he should be expected to go, should be expected to play. Now, you got to pick up Mike Boone, and if Madison's out there, you have to have him too, depending on which one it would go to if Dalvin Cook sits. But the matchup against Green Bay, 6th most points to backs, 5th most rushing yards on the year, just a great plum spot for Dalvin Cook should he play. So I'm going to rank him as if he's going. And now we're in the point of middling RB2s, Mostert, Connor, again, Lindsey, Montgomery's in a great spot, but he's in a great spot last week, and he's still blue. I like Adrian Peterson actually a lot more than most of these guys. Had another 16-point day. Just the old man gets it done time and time again, and now gets a beautiful spot to exploit. And Singletary against New England. Yeah, not a great spot, but he's just been so much better than Freeman. I guess Freeman does get the matchup against Jacksonville, but I still don't trust that guy. And he loses the goal line to Allison, so that fucking sucks. Now we're in flex at best here. Kareem Hunt stays in there. I'm gonna put James White with these RB2 just because they're so dinged up at wide receiver, and the Buffalo Bills much more susceptible to running backs, both in the run but also the pass game. They lock down wide receivers real well, so I'm gonna put him in there. It looks like I am lower on Bell. I think that D-line, he gets the revenge narrative though, Pittsburgh, so they are gonna force feed him. So just on that alone, I'm going to bump him up. I wouldn't play AP above him. I wouldn't play James Conner above him with the revenge game going on here. So he does get the bump up even though he's facing one of the toughest D-lines to run against in the league. And then we're at flex. Laird is so uninspiring, but since he, fourth most points to backs, just getting bled each and every week. So you got to like that. I do think Sony Michel's going to start getting ridden down the stretch here. I would rather have Kareem Hunt, though, for sure. Jones in a good spot against a very generous Houston team. I like Carlos Hyde. I guess his former Bucks. So, no, 49ers was the former team. Never mind. Boston Scott, though, 7 targets last week, 16 touches the week before. So the volume has been there for the guy. And, Dallas, I think, can get up pretty big early, flipping into a positive game script. I like Cohen actually a little, very close to where I like Montgomery, just because they are giving up so much receiving work to running backs. Kansas City is, in addition to the touchdown. So I like him a lot. I'm not trusting any Chiefs backs. Get rid of him. Now Mike Boone, where would he slide in? Should Dalvin sit? He'd be right in this tier of the tier 4 because that zone blocking scheme is so productive and the matchup's so ripe there. So just to show you where he would slide in. Other than that, in terms of that's like the last ugly last-ditch flex. So I'm going to cut that off. I don't trust Royce Freeman now. So any names down here that belong in that list, not David Johnson, Thompson. Nobody I'm really bumping up all that much. Maybe Darwin I'd rather have. I am intrigued by Carry-On in his return. I don't know how much he's going to get used, if it's going to be a committee, what the deal is there. But he had double digits in pretty much every game he was healthy. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him return there. Anyone else down here? Again, Mike Boone, versus Madison. I'd rather own Boone, but if Madison plays, he was that clear number 2 all year. I would not be shocked to see him re-enter that role. So I would try to own both if I could as an owner. There's not a whole lot else. Thompson really disappeared this week and really just disappointed me in that sense. I guess, down here you're going for touchdown upside and Barber comes with it, but the rest of this is getting gross. So, once you get to David Johnson territory, you're in a tough spot. I'd rather have Darwin. You're sure a bet for volume. I'd have him above Shady. So I guess if you're desperate, you're looking at some of these names. Breida's still as explosive as ever, but 2 fumbles didn't help his case. Spencer Ware is the one that playing the most snaps here. So I don't want any Chiefs running backs, but maybe Ware if you're, again, completely and utterly desperate. Let's get back to your questions and comments, folks. I hope Mahomes' car breaks this weekend. I wouldn't be overly worried about Mahomes. Tough spot for the kid against Chicago. Yeah, he gets it done in any matchup, so, you're going to be definitely screaming a little bit Leo, but there's other quarterbacks. He fell into the 6th spot for me, so ultimately I'm not mad about Mahomes there. Started effing Gallup over Williams and Miller, and it cost me. No, Jimmy, so fucking sorry to hear that. I would have done the same if it makes you feel better. But yeah, Miller and Williams both balled out, so that sucks, my dude. I'm playing for 3rd myself. It's so deflating. Even just doing the show, I hope I don't seem like depressed, but clearly haven't really seen some sunshine in a long time. Nightmares haunted. Went Gallup over Shepard and Tate. I mean, yeah. Again, Gallup was in the shootout style script, and the Rams just didn't hold up their end of the bargain there at all. And so, they pulled out the pass game early. I feel like I need to go Rivers over Kyler due to the matchup, but I also start Keenan, Hunter Henry, and Eckler. Bolt up, says Chris Jason. Yeah, I mean, you got your last Rivers game, and you're such a Rivers guy. I know you. His last home game, you know he's going to be fired up, and probably last home game. I shouldn't say definite, but it very realistically could be his last game. Loading up that much, though, is a little nerve-wracking. Kyler's not in that bad of a spot against Seattle. A lot of garbage time could be potentially brewing there. Dak or Rivers, asks Leo. I got to go Dak there. Philly is a horrendous secondary, so as long as they can keep it competitive, I still think Dak will dominate. Do I bench Kamara or Drake for Drake? Kamara's been killing me, shaking my head half PPR. Again, I wouldn't. I still just keep thinking, as soon as you bench him, you're going to get fucked. But yeah, if you had done it this week, you would have been in a much better spot. So Giuseppe, you got to trust your gut there. I personally would keep Kamara in, but I don't blame you at all. It's justifiable. It's acceptable if you do it. So you have my blessing. I just personally wouldn't do it. Do I stream Hollister over Hunter Henry against the disgusting cards? No Josh Gordon, few more targets. Ooh, baby. If Oakland wasn't as juicy of a matchup, I'd say yes, CJ, but I think you got to go Hunter Henry still, just because he's the better talent in the better spot. That being said, Hollister, definitely 2-touchdown upside this week against the pathetic Cardinals. James Washington, Zach Pascal, or OBJ, half PPR. Ooh. I think I'm going OBJ there. Let me get the rankings done and out. Baltimore's a tough spot, though. And Washington, Pittsburgh, they have the Jets, and that's a much better spot. Juju's probably going to be out, so maybe I do that. Go after Mike Boone or Madison. Giuseppe, that's a complete toss-up. My guess is Madison's the guy if he's active, but there's been no updates on his health. So if he's done, then it's Boone, and then Cook's probably going to be back anyways. I'd say, gun to my head, I'd probably pick up Boone before Madison, but I'd ideally be able to stash both until we know a little more about Madison's health. I need to start 2 running backs, Drake, Breida, Montgomery, or Murray. I'm guessing it's Latavius Murray. So out of those guys, the only sure bets for volume are Drake and Montgomery. So I'd be locking those 2 in, Leo. Wentz or Cousins, I'm going to go Wentz there. Jeff, again, such high implications in that game. Dallas versus Philly, the division on the line. I think both bring their best. The coaches are going to hold nothing back. You have that playoff-style game, which just means more and more points for everybody. Alrighty, folks. Top tier here, it's got to be Mike Thomas at number 1. I love Hopkins, and I love the matchup against Tampa Bay, don't get me wrong, but it's the Hopkins show. After that, Adams, Julio, how could you bench Julio? 20 targets this last week, 2 scores, finally finds the end zone, and I'm always going to go Tyreek above Adams, and really above anybody, so I'm going to bump that to there. Now it gets kind of crazy, though, at wide receiver. I'm going to bump up Allen above, you got Will Greer coming in for DJ Moore. What does that mean? I'm going to bump up Amari Cooper, who's just dominated Philadelphia since joining the Cowboys, more so at home, but still definitely a great spot. You got to feel decent about Devontae Parker. Keenan Allen against Oakland. Let's pull up the matchup calendar and kind of see how all this shakes out to help us sift through, because after the top 6, it's getting pretty difficult. So there's the calendar. Let me pull up where is it? Safari. Now we're going to wide receivers. Alrighty. Tampa Bay, most points to wide receivers with the best talent probably in the game outside of Mike Thomas. So don't really need to overthink that one. Minnesota 8th, and they've been just getting bled. You got the Philly matchup, as we already highlighted. Jacksonville, not the best of matchup, 17th, but Julio, we saw what happened in the first game without Ridley, and it was just the Julio show. Again, 20 targets, so you feel good about that. Oakland, such a generous team. Godwin, R.I.P., my friend. Not a goodbye. I see you later. I loved our caption there, CJ. It sucks that you're gone, but hopefully we'll see you next year. The best 4th-round pick I've ever had. It's a lot nostalgic. Get in here. Can I start a tear for you? But no, seriously, Godwin was unbelievable. I love Sutton. You got to love Lockett this week after his rebound. So those are a few names that are going to get bumped up my rankings for sure. Cincinnati, not the easiest of matchups for Parker. I know I saw him in my top 7 there, and he'll be in my top 12. I do love Gallup, though. a very generous team. I'm going to love DK against Arizona and Lockett, like I mentioned. Williams on that 2 TD streak, a great bet to see it again. And then you see some of these other bigger names. Woods disappeared, now gets San Fran. New England for John Brown. He had a big game last week in a tough spot against Pitt. But still, New England, the hardest secondary, hardest matchup for wide receivers. Baltimore not far behind, so that's going to be tough for OBJ and Landry. So a lot of guys you'd love to have. I'm going to have definitely Tyler Boyd much higher than a lot of people this week against Miami. And we already mentioned James Washington getting that nice New York matchup. Very juicy. If ever Will Fuller's going to have another one of those 50-point days against Tampa Bay, is certainly the spot. So I'm going to show you where I rank those. I'm not going to drop Wentz for Rivers, no, Giuseppe. But let's get back to the wide receivers and start moving some of these names up. I already mentioned I'm going to love Will Fuller this week. I'm going to love Tyler Boyd. So let's start getting some of these names a bit higher. I'm going to love DK. And let's start sifting through. So Allen, Cooper, Parker, I just don't feel great there. I'm not high on Julian. I am very high on A.J. Brown, though. So he's going to be top 10 this week. Yep, A.J. Brown, top 10 again. Been the number 1 wide receiver these last 4 weeks and the top 10 ever since Tannehill took over. Just the best stretch run hero. We called this, and it's coming to fruition there. So I feel great about A.J. Brown. From here, who else? I love Sutton this week, even a little bit more than Parker. That Detroit matchup couldn't be juicier. He's going to draw Slay. I like Lockett more than him even. I like Lockett maybe even more than A.J. Brown. The fact that he's just back makes me feel so much better about him this week. Don't like Galladay at all this week. He's going to definitely be lower. Great matchup for Terry. I told you guys, I'm going to love Perriman this week. The number 1 in this explosive Bruce Arians, no risk it, no biscuit style. Allen Robinson, the number 2 wide receiver over these last few weeks. So I'd have him just above Parker as well. So good in the red zone. I have him above Sutton as well. So that's like your last potential wide receiver 1s here. Moving into your upside 2s. Perriman, you got to make your priority on the waiver wire, whether it's to use or whether it's for your own, blocking your opponent. You got to have him up there. Again, DJ Moore, I am nervous what Will Grier is going to mean for this. The matchup's right. We just saw Indy secondary get destroyed by Mike Thomas. But the quarterback, the surrounding talent, has to have you nervous. Edelman just makes me so nervous. I would be probably benching him this week if I had any better option. He didn't look fully healthy. And now he gets a much tougher matchup against Buffalo. So I am definitely nervous here for Edelman. So I'm going to have Tyler Boyd above him, above DJ Moore even. 15 spots higher than the ECR on Boyd, but he's taking advantage of the easy matchups when there's not a true number 1 corner that can shadow him and lock him down. And we've got the top 4 corners down for Miami. So Tyler Boyd has to be high in your rankings here. I'm going to bump DK up. So yeah, I'm clear. There's a ton of wide receivers. I'm significantly above the ECR. This is a strange week of rankings. Going to bump up Mike Williams. I think he continues that touchdown streak. Diggs against Green Bay, I think, needs to be higher. So I'm going to bump him up. Just continues to get it done. Let's cut this tier off. I am nervous about Robert Woods against San Fran, though they are down Sherman and looked much more susceptible. I'm much more nervous about Galladay. I'm gonna bump Terry McLaurin in these top 20 here. I'm gonna have him above not DK, but Mike Williams. That's actually where I'm going to cut this off because, again, Mike Williams was so up and down, so risky. He'd only had 1 touchdown. Had 0 touchdowns, rather, coming in until 2 weeks ago. I do think he continues that trend. And I am going to bump up Michael Gallup. So, yeah, very low on Edelman and Robert Woods compared to the ECR, as well as Kenny Galladay. But the big names now have to start coming in, start getting ranked. Thielen will be right there with him. I do think Sanders gets that the Ramsey treatment this week, so not as high on him as you could be. I do like Slayton. Scored 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I'm going to bump up Anthony Miller into this tier, actually, strictly because, 1, he's just been balling double digits in 4 straight ever since Taylor Gabriel went out. But 2, Kansas City, very Very locked down on the outside, but giving up the sixth most points to slot wide receivers on the year. I saw that stat from Graham Barfield. So they're in a good spot. Marquise Brown, just for the blow-up upside against Cleveland, you got to enjoy. You saw 2 touchdowns last week. He always comes with that style of upside. I do like T.Y. Hilton. Saw 9 targets, slowly working himself back into game shape. So he's someone I'm a bit higher on this coming week. Other than that, I'm going to bump up Washington. So I'm 10 spots higher on him. And a great spot against the Jets with Juju out. He just keeps getting it done. I'm surprised he's ranked this low. In fact, I'm going to bump him safer than Marquise Brown, in my opinion, off an 80-yard day. Safer than John Brown. So that's how these shake out. DJ Chark is cutting and running. So where is he? There he is. Let's put him, where would he slide in against Atlanta? Generous team. Probably, right around here. Number 21. And then you continue down the list. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard. Definitely above fucking D.D. Westbrook. It's Conley there. That's the guy I'm looking at. Robbie Anderson had a dud last week. Pittsburgh, not the easiest of matchups, but he had really been getting it done for his 4 weeks before last week. So fan of him. Do not really like a whole lot else down here. I do, Amendola has worked his way into streaming consideration, setting a career high in yardage this year, actually, shockingly. Took him this long to. Again, guys, questions, comments, keep them coming, and of course, likes and shares, greatly appreciated. I am going to bump up Greg Ward, the only wide receiver to catch a ball from Carson Wentz last week. It was all the tight ends and him, and then Boston Scott as well. So clearly he's got his top guys' trust. So if you're desperate for a streamer, you can toss him in there for sure. Not a fan of Pascal with T.Y. Hilton back. I took a clear number 2 role there. I do like Deontay Johnson more than D.D. Westbrook, Amendola. Just such a good talent and a great matchup this week. Kenny Stills, 2 TDs. I would stream him over Curtis fucking Samuel. I know he got the touchdown, but Will Greer, and he just fucking so inconsistent. I hate him. I'll never be someone to push you to play Curtis Samuel anymore after this pathetic year. Just really fucking pissed me off. Any other names that we need to shout out down here? I do like N'Keal Harry. Buffalo, a tough matchup, but finding the end zone the last couple weeks, they're really making a concerted effort, I think, to get this guy the rock more. Justin Watson definitely has to be higher. Up to wide receiver 40, an athletic freak now stepping into the number 2 role, assuming Scotty Miller and Godwin both sit. And Godwin definitely going to sit Scotty Miller, hamstring flare. Seems likely. So if you're desperate for a wide receiver streamer and Washington's already gone, then take a look at Watson. Now, Anthony Miller was only 26% owned coming into this week. So if you don't get Brashad Perriman up at top 13 wide receiver, then you look at Anthony Miller, then you look at James Washington, and if all those guys are gone, Justin Watson, a potential pickup as a big athletic freak that really fills that Mike Evans role quite well. And then any other last names, maybe Tavon Austin gets deep for another big one, but you can't really rely on that in your finals. I'd hope, at least, folks. Who's the guy? Steven Sims, 11 targets last week. So, again, desperation time. 11 targets facing the Giants, the second most points. I would go something like there. I'm going to bump Cobb up despite the recent struggles. Philly is definitely a get-right spot. Tyrell having a touchdown this week, I guess, keeps him on the radar. Put him up here with, your last really guys you'd want to use. Alrighty. Now moving on to tight end. Do we have any other questions? No. So we'll move on to tight ends, defenses, kickers, and call it a night, folks. But again, keep your questions coming in. That's why I like to do it live. Oh my god, I just realized I didn't turn off the matchup calendar. What a fucking moron. Why didn't anyone give me the fucking heads up there? Thanks, guys. Really, really well tuned in. Tell me the matchup calendar is off there. So let me just quickly show you my wide receiver rankings. That probably made no sense for the last fucking hour, because I forgot to take that off. CJ, you fucking paying attention? Jesus. Alrighty, so again, just a quick scan through here. Definitely a strange wide receiver pool. Because you got your top two locked in, your other elite wide receiver ones, and then it's a lot of people higher than what the ECR is, a lot of people lower. DJ Moore, 10 spots below a Tyler Boyd, 14 higher. I love Will Fuller to blow up against Tampa Bay. I'm going to stack that game all day. DK Terry in your top 20. Then you got some high upside, wide receiver threes, loving, wanted to highlight Anthony Miller, Brashad Perriman as potential pickups this week. James Washington an option. As you can see, though, a lot lower on some big names like Moore, Julian Edelman, Woods, Galladay, even Kupp down there. I get he scored last week, but the usage didn't come to garbage time at all. So a lot of guys I'm a lot lower on. And then, if you're really desperate for a streamer and none of those other guys I highlighted are there, Watson should be the number 2 this week in a very burnable matchup against Houston. So I really like playing him too. I don't know what his DraftKings price is, but I'm sure it's going to be juicy. And then real desperation, 11 targets for Steven Sims. So that gives you a quick glance at the wide receivers. Thanks again for pointing out that the matchup calendar was on the whole fucking time. That was my fault, obviously, but give me a heads up, folks. Alrighty, matchups calendar. Speaking of getting rid of it, let's pull it back up for tight ends, because that's where we are headed. Alrighty, so as you can see, our elite guys, middle of the pack matchups here for Travis Kelce and Kittle. Nothing to shy away from. Dallas, very generous for Zach Ertz, so maybe he gets the number 1 spot this week. Hunter Henry, I know CJ, you were asking about him, the second most points to tight ends, so real tough to bench him. The Chargers have been pretty decent against tight ends, but Waller off a huge 120-yard day. I'd probably have Mark Andrews, 8th most points to the position, ahead of him. Tennessee, though, a good spot for Jared Cook, 4th most points to tight end, so I'm going to love him this week. We already talked about Dallas giving up a ton to tight ends. So Dallas Goedert is in a great spot as well. Not a good spot for Doyle, who's been sucking anyways, so let's bump him down. O.J. Howard, with all these injuries around him, and a great spot, 13th most points to tight ends. Hollister, the most points to tight ends at 13. He's going to be top 5 play this week for sure. And then you got, you're getting down here to some of the other names that just shouldn't matter to you because they all suck. They're all in tough spots. So if you're desperation for a streamer, we're looking maybe at Darren Fells for a touchdown. Nothing really else intriguing down there. So let me get rid of the matchup calendar. Hello, here I am. And get back to your tight end rankings. Alrighty, so Kittle, Kelce, Ertz, always your kind of elite 3. Higbee in a tough spot against San Fran, but you really can't bench him. I still, if I had Andrews, I'd have him in above him. Hunter Henry, I'm going to put above all these guys. I know he's off a dud, but again, second most points to tight ends. A great spot for him. Let's get to your questions. Sorry, I missed these ones. Eckler or Mostert asks Tom Tran. I'm going to go Eckler there. The Oakland matchup is so juicy. Mostert, despite being the lead back, a tougher matchup, and it's still a timeshare. You're still time for shenanigans there. Derek Hare, let's get through these tight ends, and I'll let you know. But I think I got to go Darren Waller, despite I love the matchup for Hollister. He's going to be my tight end 7 here, right above Higbee. I'm going to cut Hooper out of here. I know how great he was earlier in the year. I'm actually going to put Jared Cook in. Again, top 4 matchup. The guy's been a monster. Didn't have a great game Monday Night Football. What did he do, actually? I forget what Cook's line was. But Tennessee's so generous to tight ends. I think he's in a great spot to blow up. I'd rather have, again, Austin Hooper just been very quiet. Saw 6 targets, didn't catch a touchdown, 20 yards. Really been a lineup killer these last couple weeks, so definitely not a must start. I'm going to get Dallas Goedert in there above him. O.J. Howard above all those guys. Because, again, I really like the upside he brings to the table as maybe the number 2 target against a very generous Houston secondary. Let's bump up Jonnu Smith, just the athleticism, double-digit points back-to-back games. Kyle Rudolph, touchdown or bust, but a great spot to score this week. The 3rd most points to tight ends Green Bay has surrendered. So this is the last of the usable tight ends. Like I said, I'm not trusting Jack Doyle at this point. I'd rather have the touchdown upside of Darren Fells. And now you're just, Greg Olsen was once Streamable, so is Ian Thomas, but now they're going to be in a nightmare committee. I'm going to bump Caden Smith up, a good matchup against Washington. Ingram placed on the IR, so that's your number 2 guy there. I guess Witten's on a bad spot. Yeah, I'll have him a little bit above Caden, I guess. Cincinnati for Jasecki, a decent spot. Lots of routes run, but getting no love. I like Irv Smith Jr., above some of these options in terms of catching a touchdown. And same with, Eifert, a shit bum, but could get himself in the end zone against a bad Miami team. So there's your tight ends there. Derek, again, that Hollister, the matchup is so juicy, but Waller is just that much more athletic and been that much more consistent. I think I go him, unless you want that 2 TD upside, because Hollister a better chance to score, Waller a better chance to rack up the stats, in my opinion. Alrighty, and now the last positions, the defense, the kickers, the special teams here. Tuned in late, but I'm assuming I'm starting Henry and Jones at running back and Adams and Thomas at wide receiver. Got to decide between DJ Moore, Lindsey, Singletary, Monty, or James White at flex. Yeah, you're not benching any of those first 4 names. Despite tough spots for Henry and Jones, you got to ride them out. And between those guys, all for the flex, I know you get the half per carry, Derek, and so Singletary to me at this point is the safest bet to get 15 to 20 touches no matter what. So I lock him in first for my flex. Monty's probably the next option, probably a good 15-20 carry bet in a very, very juicy spot here. But Singletary, despite the hard matchup against New England, he's been getting it done the past 2 weeks against Baltimore and Pittsburgh just as hard, or very close to as hard. We saw Mixon get it done against this defense. I really think Singletary can too, Derek. So that's where I'm leaning right now. Alrighty, in terms of defenses, folks, I still have your usual big 3. I'm going to put Pittsburgh at the top of it because I like their matchup the most. And then Buffalo at home versus New England. Not a great offense in New England. Showed us why we love them so much this last week. I love Denver's spot. San Fran, now with these injuries, is not nearly the matchup they once were. So give me Denver, give me Kansas City, then Seattle. Arizona does still turn the ball over, still give up a ton of sacks. So as long as we get Jadeveon Clowney back there, I'll be a big fan of them. Buffalo, New England, not nearly the intimidating matchup it used to be. I really like streaming, though, the Colts this week. Will Greer's first NFL matchup. Could he light it up? Sure. But I think there's a much bigger risk. He shits his pants, complete diarrhea all over the field. And so I'd stream the Colts above a lot of these other options. And then the Texans, betting on a Winston turnover is always a great move, especially when he's now limited to his, wide receiver 4 and 5 at this point. So yeah, I like the Houston Texans there. Pat Sullivan, I'm sorry to read that one. That's a tough fucking decision there. I would have done the same because Sanders balled out 150 yards. And now got Atlanta, so I totally see why you did it, and that sucks, just didn't work out. Do you see a weakness, run D in New Orleans after losing rankings in Davenport? I couldn't watch. Well, Mac only totaled 19 yards, Derek, so whether that was a product of the Colts just being inept or the run D, not being weak at all, probably a combination of both, but no, I didn't notice anything weak about that run D at all, so it's not like I'm going out of my way to target the Saints. Then you got the Giants. I can't trust that defense. I'd rather have the Chargers, although I don't trust them all that much either. I like the Falcons. I mean, that unit has really stiffened up these last few weeks. Jacksonville, pathetic, as we all know. So if I'm desperate for a streamer, I'd go there first. Other than that, you're looking at some shit matchups, so hopefully you can get the Colts, my favorite streams of the week. If not, the Falcons should be there for you. And if not them, I'm going to put the Vikes. Green Bay, not a beautiful matchup, but that offense is so overrated. I'm going to bump the Bengals up, actually, as a streamer, too. So, worst case, I'm going to bump, and Saints have a good quality defense. Not above them here, but I would put the Bengals above, if we're talking about talent efficiency, that's the Giants. And Miami, we know Fitzpatrick loves the turnovers. So I'll do that there, and then anything else standing out, not Tampa Bay, not Philly against Dallas. Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry there. I guess Philly Rivers has so many turnovers, 3 games with 3+ turnovers in the last 5, so you could potentially toss the Raiders in if you're desperate. And last but not least, everybody's favorite position, the kickers. Again, guys, last questions. Get them on in. I'm going to fly through these kickers, and I'd love to make sure I answer everything, every concern you guys have before I head out of here. I know we fucked you in your semis here, but Justin Tucker still has to be at the top of your list. Harrison Butker always comes in the second. If he can boot for 11 points in the just snowball of the century, then he's got to be in there. Then Lutz right up there with the best of them. Matt Gay, I see the argument, great offense, although they're down their top wide receiver, so that makes me a little more nervous about him. I'd rather have Robbie Gould. I'd rather have Young Ho Koo, despite kind of sucking. I love Michael Badgley, too, so I'm going to get him in there. Mateo will kill me, but I got to have Greg the Leg. And I love Fairbairn this week, too, against Tampa Bay. They're going to move it with ease. They're going to have the most points to kickers, so I like that call there. Crosby, Minnesota maybe limits them, and that means they have to use Crosby a bit more. But once you get to this range, I don't really love any of these guys. They all kind of have the same argument. Maybe Zane, was a monster for so long. Boswell actually has a shocking amount of 15-point days there. We'd love to see you be a guest on the podcast with Bobby Sylvester and Mike Taggs. Gonna tweet them. You 3 together would be great. I'd love to have either of those guys on my pod or join theirs. Would be incredible, Derek, so I appreciate that. Get me on their radar for sure. I'd love to host or go on their shows. That'd be awesome. I appreciate those compliments that you consider me within that realm of expertise and quality. I mean, obviously I don't lack for confidence, but it's humbling to know that, so I appreciate that, my friend. Let's bump up Boswell. Other than that, any other names to really throw out here? Forbath looked good. He hit a 50-yarder. So they're going to move the ball, I think, with ease against them. I like Joey Slyle, though. You got Greer coming in, so that's really tough to trust. But still, when you're this low, it's like, all right. That's about it. That's really all I could trust here. Doubt they'll see it. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. So there's your kickers, and that's it for your questions. So, guys, Week 16. Nothing else other than the win matters at this point. We got to get you that title. The moment that rival's holding your baby, getting married, the fantasy football championship. Let's get it done, Wolfpack. I'm so happy, so thankful for all your support all year. This, of course, you're on Facebook if you're watching the broadcast, but if you're tuned into the podcast, Fantasy Fullback Dive, we paved your path to 2019 titles. Thanks so much for following us there, and best of luck. If this is your last time listening to us, Merry Christmas. Hopefully that stocking is stuffed with a title and some extra cash. And best of luck in Week 16, guys. You know where to find us. I will be here for your Sunday fantasy tailgate and ideally a fantasy DFS show on Thursday as well. Best of luck, though. Week 16, let's get those ships, guys. Wolfpack, I'm out.